The third series, the series of the 5 concerns, the Westwood series. One of the most important series for the practitioners of tensegrity is called the series of the 5 concerns. A nickname for this series is the Westwood series, given to it because it was taught publicly for the first time in the Pauley Pavilion at the University of California at Los Angeles, which is located in an area called Westwood. This series was conceived as an attempt to integrate what Don Juan Mates called the 5 concerns of the shamans of ancient Mexico. Everything those sorcerers did rotated around 5 concerns. 1. The magical passes. 2. The energetic center in the human body called the center for decisions. 3. Recapitulation, the means for enhancing the scope of human awareness. 4. Dreaming, the bona fide art of breaking the parameters of normal perception. 5. Inner silence, the stage of human perception from which those sorcerers launched every one of their perceptual attainments. This sequence of 5 concerns was an arrangement patterned on the understanding that those sorcerers had of the world around them. One of the astounding findings of those shamans, according to what Don Juan taught, was the existence in the universe of an agglutinating force that binds energy fields together into concrete, functional units. The sorcerers who discovered the existence of this force described it as a vibration, or a vibratory condition, that permeates groups of energy fields and glues them together. In terms of this arrangement of the 5 concerns of the shamans of ancient Mexico, the magical passes fulfill the function of the vibratory condition those shamans talked about. When those sorcerers put together this shamanistic sequence of 5 concerns, they copied the patterning of energy that was revealed to them when they were capable of seeing energy as it flows in the universe. The binding force was the magical passes. The magical passes were the unit that permeated through the 4 remaining units and grouped them together into one functional whole. The Westwood series, following the patterning of the shamans of ancient Mexico, has consequently been divided into 4 groups, arranged in terms of their importance as envisioned by the sorcerers who formulated them. 1. The center for decisions. 2. Recapitulation. 3. Dreaming. 4. Inner silence. The first group, the center for decisions. The most important topic for the shamans who lived in Mexico in ancient times, and for all the shamans of Don Juan's lineage, was the center for decisions. Shamans are convinced by the practical results of their endeavors that there is a spot on the human body which accounts for decision making, the V spot, the area on the crest of the sternum at the base of the neck, where the clavicles meet to form a letter V. It is a center where energy is rarefied to the point of being tremendously subtle, and it stores a specific type of energy which some shamans are incapable of defining. They are utterly certain, however, that they can feel the presence of that energy and its effects. It is the belief of shamans that this special energy is always pushed out of that center very early in the lives of human beings, and it never returns to it. thus depriving human beings of something perhaps more important than all the energy of the other centers combined, the capacity to make decisions. In relation to the issue of making decisions, Don Juan expressed the hard opinion of the sorcerers of his lineage. Their observations over the centuries had led them to conclude that human beings are incapable of making decisions, and that for this reason they have created the social order, gigantic institutions that assume responsibility for decision making. They let those gigantic institutions decide for them, and they merely fulfill the decisions already made on their behalf. The V spot at the base of the neck was for those shamans a place of such importance that they rarely touched it with their hands. If it was touched, the touch was ritualistic and always performed by someone else with the aid of an object. They used highly polished pieces of hard wood or polished bones of animals, utilizing the round head of the bone so as to have an object of the perfect contour, the size of the hollow spot on the neck. They would press with those bones or pieces of wood to create pressure on the borders of that hollow spot. Those objects were also used, although rarely, for self-massage, or for what we understand nowadays as acupressure. How did they come to find out that the hollow spot is the center for decisions? I asked Don Juan once. Every center of energy in the body, he replied, shows a concentration of energy, a sort of vortex of energy, like a funnel that actually seems to rotate counterclockwise from the perspective of the seer who gazes into it. The strength of a particular center depends on the force of that movement. If it barely moves, the center is exhausted, depleted of energy. When the sorcerers of ancient times, Don Juan continued, were scanning the body with their seeing eye, they noticed the presence of those vortexes. They became very curious about them and made a map of them. Are there many such centers in the body, Don Juan? I asked. There are hundreds of them, he replied, if not thousands. One can say that a human being is nothing else but a conglomerate of thousands of twirling vortexes. Some of them so very small that they are, let's say, like pinholes, but very important pinholes. Most of the vortexes are vortexes of energy. Energy flows freely through them, or is stuck in them. There are, however, 6 which are so enormous that they deserve special treatment. They are centers of life and vitality. Energy there is never stuck. But sometimes the supply of energy is so scarce that the center barely rotates. Don Juan explained that those enormous centers of vitality were located on 6 areas of the body. He enumerated them in terms of importance that shamans accorded them. The first was on the area of the liver and gallbladder. The second on the area of the pancreas and spleen. The third on the area of the kidneys and adrenals. And the fourth on the hollow spot at the base of the neck on the frontal part of the body. The fifth was around the womb, and the sixth was on the top of the head. The fifth center, pertinent only to women, had, according to what Don Juan said, a special kind of energy that gave sorcerers the impression of liquidness. It was a feature that only some women had. It seemed to serve as a natural filter that screened out superfluous influences. The sixth center, located on the top of the head, Don Juan described as something more than an anomaly, and refrained absolutely from having anything to do with it. He portrayed it as possessing not a circular vortex of energy like the others, but a pendulum-like back and forth movement, somehow reminiscent of the beating of a heart. Why is the energy of that center so different, Don Juan? I asked him. The sixth center of energy, he said, doesn't quite belong to man. You see, we human beings are under siege, so to speak. That center has been taken over by an invader, an unseen predator. And the only way to overcome this predator is by fortifying all the other centers. Isn't it a bit paranoid to feel that we are under siege, Don Juan? I asked. Well, maybe for you, but certainly not for me, he replied. I see energy, and I see that energy over the center on the top of the head doesn't fluctuate like the energy of the other centers. It has a back and forth movement, quite disgusting and quite foreign. I also see that in a sorcerer who has been capable of vanquishing the mind, which sorcerers call a foreign installation, the fluctuation of that center has become exactly like the fluctuation of all the others. Don Juan, throughout the years of my apprenticeship, systematically refused to talk about that sixth center. On this occasion, when he was telling me about the centers of vitality, he dismissed my frantic probes, rather rudely, and began to talk about the fourth center, the center for decisions. This fourth center, he said, has a special type of energy, which appears to the eye of the seer as possessing a unique transparency, something that could be described as resembling water, energy so fluid that it seems liquid. The liquid appearance of this special energy is the mark of a filter-like quality of the center for decisions itself, which screens any energy coming to it and draws from it only the aspect of it that is liquid-like. Such a quality of liquidness is a uniform and consistent feature of this center. Sorcerers also call it the Watery Center. The rotation of energy at the center for decisions is the weakest of them all, he went on. That's why man can barely decide anything. Sorcerers see that after they practice certain magical passes, that center becomes active, and they can certainly make decisions to their heart's content, while they couldn't even take a first step before. Don Juan was quite emphatic about the fact that the shamans of ancient Mexico had an aversion that bordered on phobia about touching their own hollow spot at the base of the neck. The only way in which they accepted any interference whatsoever with that spot was through the use of their magical passes, which reinforced that center by bringing dispersed energy to it, clearing away in this manner, any hesitation in decision-making born out of the natural energy dispersion brought about by the wear and tear of everyday life. A human being, Don Juan said, perceived as a conglomerate of energy fields, is a concrete and sealed unit into which no energy can be injected and from which no energy can escape. The feeling of losing energy, which all of us experience at one time or another, is the result of energy being chased away, dispersed from the 5 enormous natural centers of life and vitality. Any sense of gaining energy is due to the redeployment of energy previously dispersed from those centers. That is to say, the energy is relocated onto those 5 centers of life and vitality. The magical passes for the Center for Decisions. 1. Bringing energy to the Center for Decisions with a back and forth motion of the hands and arms, with the palms turned downward. The arms shoot out to the front at a 45-degree angle with an exhalation. The palms of the hands facing down. Then they are retrieved to the sides of the chest, under the axilla, with an inhalation. The shoulders are raised in order to maintain the same degree of inclination. In the second facet of this movement, the arms are extended downward with an inhalation and pulled back with an exhalation. 2. Bringing energy to the Center for Decisions with a back and forth motion of the hands and arms, with the palms turned upward. This magical pass is like the preceding one, and it is executed in exactly the same fashion, except that it is done with the palms of the hands turned upward. The inhalations and exhalations are also exactly as in the preceding movement. Air is exhaled as the hands and arms move forward at a 45-degree level of inclination, and it is inhaled as the arms move backward. Then air is inhaled as the hands and arms move downward, and exhaled as the hands and arms retrieve. 3. Bringing energy to the Center for Decisions with a circular motion of the hands and arms, with the palms turned downward. This magical pass begins exactly like the first one of this group, except that when the hands reach their fully extended position, 2 complete circles are drawn with the hands and the arms going away from each other to reach a point about 6 inches beyond the rib cage. When the hands complete the circles, the arms are retrieved to the sides of the rib cage under the axilla. This magical pass consists of 2 facets. In the first, air is exhaled as the circles are drawn and inhaled as the arms are retrieved backward. In the second, air is inhaled as the hands and arms draw the circles, and exhaled as the arms are retrieved. 4. Bringing energy to the Center for Decisions in a circular motion of the hands and arms with the palms turned upward. This magical pass is exactly like the preceding one, with the same 2 facets of inhalation and exhalation, but the 2 circles are drawn by the hands and arms with the palms of the hands turned upward. 5. bringing energy to the center for decisions from the midsection of the body. The arms are bent at the elbows and kept high at the level of the shoulders. The fingers are kept loosely pointing toward the V spot, but without touching it. The arms move in a teeter-totter fashion from right to left and left to right. The motion is not accomplished by moving the shoulders or the hips, but by the contraction of the muscles of the stomach, which moves the midsection to the right, to the left, and to the right again, and so on. 6. Bringing energy to the center for decisions from the area of the shoulder blades. The arms are bent as in the previous movement, but the shoulders are rounded so that the elbows are heavily drawn toward the front. The left hand is placed on top of the right. The fingers are held loose, pointing toward the V spot without touching it, and the chin juts out and rests on the hollow spot between the thumb and index finger of the left hand. The bent elbows are pushed forward, extending the shoulder blades, one at a time, to the maximum. 7. Stirring energy around the center for decisions with a bent wrist. Both hands are brought to the V spot on the base of the neck without touching it. The hands are gently curved. The fingers point at the center for decisions. Then the hands begin to move, the left first, followed by the right, as if stirring a liquid substance around that area, or as if they were fanning air into the V spot, with a series of gentle movements of each hand. These movements are accomplished by extending the whole arm laterally and then bringing it back to the area in front of the V spot. Then the left arm strikes out in front of the V spot with the hand turned sharply inward, using the wrist and the back of the hand as a striking surface. The right arm executes the same movement. In this manner, a series of forceful blows are delivered to the area right in front of the V spot. 8. Transferring energy from the two centers of vitality on the front of the body to the center for decisions. Both hands are brought to the area of the pancreas and spleen, a few inches in front of the body. The left hand, with the palm turned upward, is held 4 or 5 inches below the right one, which has the palm turned downward. The left forearm is held at a 90-degree angle, extended straight out to the front. The right forearm is also at a 90-degree angle, but held close to the body so that the fingertips point to the left. The left hand makes 2 inward circles about 1 foot in diameter around the area of the pancreas and spleen. Once it has completed the second circle, the right hand shoots out to the front and strikes with the edge of the hand to the area an arm's length in front of the liver and gallbladder. The exact same movements are performed on the other side of the body by reversing the position of the hands, which are brought to the area of the liver and gallbladder, with the right hand circling and the left hand striking forward to the area an arm's length in front of the pancreas and spleen. 9. Bringing energy to the center for decisions from the knees. The left hand and arm draw 2 circles about 1 foot in diameter in front of the V spot, a bit toward the left. The palm of the hand is facing downward. Once the second circle has been drawn, The forearm is raised to the level of the shoulder, and the hand strikes away from the face, diagonally to the right, at the level of the V-spot, with the flick of the wrist as if holding a whip. The same movements are performed with the right hand. Then a deep inhalation is taken, and an exhalation follows as the hands and arms slide downward until they reach the top of the knees, with the palms facing up. A deep inhalation is taken there, and the arms are raised, with the left arm in the lead. The right arm crosses over the left as they go over the head until the fingers rest on the back of the neck. The breath is held as the top of the trunk moves 3 times in succession in a teeter-totter motion. The left shoulder goes down first, then the right, and so on. Then the air is exhaled as the arms and hands move back downward to the top of the knees, again with the palms of the hands facing up. A deep inhalation is taken, and then the air is exhaled as the hands are raised from the knees to the level of the V-spot, with the fingers pointing toward it without touching it. The hands are brought once more to the knees with an exhalation. A final deep inhalation is taken, and the hands are raised to the level of the eyes, and then brought down to the sides as the air is exhaled. The next 3 magical passes, according to Don Juan, transfer energy which belongs only to the center for decisions from the frontal edge of the luminous sphere, where it has accumulated over the years, to the back, and then from the back of the luminous sphere to the front. He said that this energy transferred back and forth goes through the V-spot, which acts as a filter, utilizing only the energy that is proper to it and discarding the rest. He pointed out that because of this selective process of the V-spot, it is essential to perform these 3 magical passes as many times as possible. 10. Energy going through the center for decisions from the front to the back and the back to the front with 2 blows. A deep inhalation is taken. Then the air is slowly exhaled as the left arm strikes out to the level of the solar plexus. With the palm of the hand turned upward, the palm is held flat and the fingers are together. Then the hand is clasped into a fist. The arm moves to the back, striking from the height of the hips with a backhand blow. The exhalation ends as the hand opens. Another deep inhalation is taken. A slow exhalation follows, while the palm of the open hand, still in back of the body, taps 10 times as if lightly hitting a solid, round object. Then the hand is clasped into a fist before the arm moves to the front in a swing-like punch that strikes an area in front of the V-spot, an arm's length away from it. The hand opens as if releasing something held in it. The arm moves down, back, and then over the head and strikes with the palm down in front of the V-spot, as if breaking whatever it has released. The exhalation ends then. The same sequence of movements is repeated with the right arm. 11. Transferring energy from the front to the back and the back to the front with the hook of the arm. A deep inhalation is made. Then the air is slowly exhaled as the left arm moves forward with the palm of the hand turned upward. The hand is quickly clasped into a fist. The fisted hand rotates until the back of the hand is turned upward and strikes over the shoulder to the back. The fisted palm faces upward. The hand opens and turns to face downward, and the exhalation ends. Another deep inhalation is taken. Then a slow exhalation begins as the hand, made into a downward hook, scoops 3 times as if rolling a solid substance into a ball. The ball is tossed upward to the level of the head with the flick of the hand and forearm, and quickly grabbed with the hand bent again at the wrist like a hook. The arm moves to the front, then to the height of the right shoulder, and strikes forward to an area right in front of the V-spot, an arm's length away from it, using the wrist and the back of the hand as a striking surface. The hand then opens as if to release whatever it had trapped, and the arm moves down to the back and over the head to strike it with great force with the flat palm. The exhalation ends as the whole body shakes with the force of the strike. The same movements are repeated with the other arm. 12. Transferring energy from the front to the back and the back to the front with 3 blows. A deep inhalation is taken. A slow exhalation follows as the left arm strikes forward with the hand open, the flat palm turned upward. The hand is quickly clasped into a fist, and the arm retrieves as if to deliver an elbow blow to the back. Then it moves laterally to the right and delivers a side punch with the forearm rubbing on the body. The elbow is retrieved again as if to deliver an elbow blow to the back. The arm is extended and moved out to the left side and to the back to deliver the 4th blow behind the body with the back of the fisted hand. The exhalation ends as the hand opens. A deep inhalation is taken again. A slow exhalation follows as the hand, bent downward into a hook, scoops. Then the hand grabs as if it were clasping something solid. The arm swings to the front at the level of the center for decisions. It continues to the right shoulder. There, the forearm makes a loop upward and delivers a back fist blow to the area in front of the V-spot, an arm's length away from it. The hand opens as if to release something that it was clasping. Then it moves down, goes behind the body, comes above the head with the palm of the hand down, and smashes whatever it released with a forceful blow of the open hand. The slow exhalation ends there. The same movements are repeated with the right arm. The second group, the recapitulation. The recapitulation, according to what Don Juan taught his disciples, was a technique discovered by the sorcerers of ancient Mexico and used by every shaman practitioner from then on to view and relive all the experiences of their lives in order to achieve 2 transcendental goals. One, the abstract goal of fulfilling a universal code that demands that awareness must be relinquished at the moment of death. And 2, the extremely pragmatic goal of acquiring perceptual fluidity. He said that the formulation of their first goal was the result of observations that those sorcerers made by means of their capacity to see energy directly as it flows in the universe. They had seen that there exists in the universe a gigantic force, an immense conglomerate of energy fields, which they called the eagle, or the dark sea of awareness. They observed that the dark sea of awareness is the force that lends awareness to all living beings, from viruses to men. They believed that it lends awareness to a newborn being, and that this being enhances that awareness by means of its life experiences until a moment in which the force demands its return. In the understanding of those sorcerers, all living beings die because they are forced to return the awareness lent to them. Sorcerers throughout the ages have understood that there is no way for what modern man calls our linear mode of thinking to explain such a phenomenon, because there is no room for a cause and effect line of reasoning as to why and how awareness is lent and then taken back. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico viewed it as an energetic fact of the universe, a fact that can't be explained in terms of cause and effect, or in terms of a purpose which can be determined a priori. The sorcerers of Don Juan's lineage believed that to recapitulate meant to give the dark sea of awareness what it was seeking, their life experiences. They believed that by means of the recapitulation, however, they could acquire a degree of control that could permit them to separate their life experiences from their life force. For them, the two were not inextricably intertwined. They were joined only circumstantially. Those sorcerers affirmed that the dark sea of awareness doesn't want to take the lives of human beings. It wants only their life experiences. Lack of discipline in human beings prevents them from separating the two forces. And in the end, they lose their lives, when it is meant that they lose only the force of their life experiences. Those sorcerers viewed the recapitulation as the procedure by which they could give the dark sea of awareness a substitute for their lives. They gave up their life experiences by recounting them, but they retained their life force. The perceptual claims of sorcerers, when examined in terms of the linear concepts of our Western world, make no sense whatsoever. Western civilization has been in contact with the shamans of the New World for 500 years, and there has never been a genuine attempt on the part of scholars to formulate a serious philosophical discourse based on statements made by those shamans. For instance, the recapitulation may seem to any member of the Western world to be congruous with psychoanalysis, something in the line of a psychological procedure, a sort of self-help technique. Nothing could be further from the truth. According to Don Juan Matus, man always loses by default. In the case of the premises of sorcery, He believed that Western man is missing a tremendous opportunity for the enhancement of his awareness, and that the way in which Western man relates himself to the universe, life, and awareness is only one of a multiplicity of options. To recapitulate for shaman practitioners means to give to an incomprehensible force, the dark sea of awareness, the very thing it seems to be looking for, their life experiences. That is to say, the awareness that they have enhanced through those very life experiences. Since Don Juan could not possibly explain these phenomena to me in terms of standard logic, he said that all sorcerers could aspire to do was to accomplish the feat of retaining their life force without knowing how it was done. He also said that there were thousands of sorcerers who had achieved this. They had retained their life force after they had given the dark sea of awareness the force of their life experiences. This meant to Don Juan that those sorcerers didn't die in the usual sense in which we understand death, but that they transcended it by retaining their life force and vanishing from the face of the earth, embarked on a definitive journey of perception. The belief of the shamans of Don Juan's lineage was that when death takes place in this fashion, all of our being is turned into energy, a special kind of energy that retains the mark of our individuality. Don Juan tried to explain this in a metaphorical sense, saying that we are composed of a number of single nations: the nation of the lungs, the nation of the heart, the nation of the stomach, the nation of the kidneys, and so on. Each of these nations sometimes work independently of the others, but at the moment of death, all of them are unified into one single entity. The sorcerers of Don Juan's lineage called this state total freedom. For those sorcerers, death is a unifier and not an annihilator, as it is for the average man. Is this state immortality, Don Juan? I asked. This is no way immortality, he replied. It is merely the entrance into an evolutionary process, using the only medium for evolution that man has at his disposal: awareness. The sorcerers of my lineage were convinced that man could not evolve biologically any further. Therefore, they considered man's awareness to be the only medium for evolution. At the moment of dying, sorcerers are not annihilated by death, but are transformed into inorganic beings. Beings that have awareness, but not an organism. To be transformed into an inorganic being was evolution for them, and it meant that a new, indescribable type of awareness was lent to them. An awareness that would last for veritably millions of years, but which would also someday have to be returned to the giver, the dark sea of awareness. One of the most important findings of the shamans of Don Juan's lineage was that, like everything else in the universe, our world is a combination of two opposing and at the same time complementary forces. One of those forces is the world we know, which those sorcerers called the world of organic beings. The other force is something they called the world of inorganic beings. The world of inorganic beings, Don Juan said, is populated by beings that possess awareness, but not an organism. They are conglomerates of energy fields, just like we are. To the eye of a seer, instead of being luminous, as human beings are, they are rather opaque. They are not round, but long, candle-like, energetic configurations. They are, in essence, conglomerates of energy fields which have cohesion and boundaries, just like we do. They are held together by the same agglutinating force that holds our energy fields together. Where is this inorganic world, Don Juan? I asked. It is our twin world, he replied. It occupies the same time and space as our world. But the type of awareness of our world is so different from the type of awareness of the inorganic world that we never notice the presence of inorganic beings, although they do notice ours. Are those inorganic beings human beings that have evolved? I asked. Not at all, he exclaimed. The inorganic beings of our twin world have been intrinsically inorganic from the start, the same way that we have always been intrinsically organic beings, also from the start. They are beings whose consciousness can evolve just like ours, and it doubtlessly does. But I have no first-hand knowledge of how this happens. What I do know, however, is that a human being whose awareness has evolved is a bright, luminescent, round, inorganic being of a special kind. Don Juan gave me a series of descriptions of this evolutionary process, which I always took to be poetic metaphors. I singled out the one that pleased me the most, which was total freedom. I fancied a human being that enters into total freedom to be the most courageous, the most imaginative being possible. Don Juan said that I was not fancying anything at all, that to enter into total freedom, a human being must call on his or her sublime side, which he said human beings have, but which it never occurs to them to use. Don Juan described the second, the pragmatic goal of the recapitulation, as the acquisition of fluidity. The sorcerer's rationale behind this had to do with one of the most elusive subjects of sorcery, the assemblage point. A point of intense luminosity the size of a tennis ball, perceivable when sorcerers see a human being as a conglomerate of energy fields. Sorcerers like Don Juan see that trillions of energy fields in the form of filaments of light from the universe at large converge on the assemblage point and go through it. This conglomerate of filaments gives the assemblage point its brilliancy. The assemblage point makes it possible for a human being to perceive those trillions of energy filaments by turning them into sensorial data. The assemblage point then interprets this data as the world of everyday life. That is to say, in terms of human socialization and human potential. To recapitulate is to relive every, or nearly every, experience that we have had, and in doing so, to displace the assemblage point, ever so slightly, or a great deal, propelling it by the force of memory to adopt the position that it had when the event being recapitulated took place. This act of going back and forth from previous positions to the current one gives the shaman practitioners the necessary fluidity to withstand extraordinary odds in their journeys into infinity. To the tensegrity practitioners, the recapitulation gives the necessary fluidity to withstand odds which are not in any part of their habitual cognition. The recapitulation as a formal procedure was done in ancient times. By recollecting every person the practitioners knew and every experience in which they had taken part. Don Juan suggested that in my case, which is the case of modern man, I make a written list of all the persons that I had met in my life as a mnemonic device. Once I had written that list, he proceeded to tell me how to use it. I had to take the first person on the list, which went backwards in time from the present to the time of my very first life experience, and set up in my memory my last interaction with that person on my list. This act is called arranging the event to be recapitulated. A detailed recollection of minutiae is required as the proper means to hone one's capacity to remember. This recollection entails getting all the pertinent physical details, such as the surroundings where the event being recollected took place. Once the event is arranged, one should enter into the locale itself, as if actually going into it, paying special attention to any relevant physical configurations. If, for instance, the interaction took place in an office, what should be remembered is the floor, the doors, the walls, the pictures, the windows, the desks, the objects on the desks, everything that could have been observed in a glance and then forgotten. The recapitulation as a formal procedure must begin by the recounting of events that had just taken place. In this fashion, the primacy of the experience takes precedence. Something that has just happened is something that one can remember with great accuracy. Sorcerers always count on the fact that human beings are capable of storing detailed information that they are not aware of, and that detail is what the dark sea of awareness is after. The actual recapitulation of the event requires that one breathe deeply, fanning the head, so to speak, very slowly and gently from side to side, beginning on one side, left or right, whichever. This fanning of the head was done as many times as needed, while remembering all the details accessible. Don Juan said that sorcerers talked about this act as breathing in all of one's own feelings spent in the event being recollected, and expelling all the unwanted moods and extraneous feelings that were left with us. Sorcerers believe that the mystery of the recapitulation lies in the act of inhaling and exhaling. Since breathing is a life-sustaining function, sorcerers are certain that by means of it, one can also deliver to the dark sea of awareness the facsimile of one's life experiences. When I pressed Don Juan for a rational explanation of this idea, his position was that things like the recapitulation could only be experienced, not explained. He said that in the act of doing, one can find liberation, and that to explain it was to dissipate our energy in fruitless efforts. His invitation was congruous with everything related to his knowledge, the invitation to take action. The list of names is used in the recapitulation as a mnemonic device that propels memory into an inconceivable journey. Sorcerer's position in this respect is that remembering events that have just taken place prepares the ground for remembering events more distant in time with the same clarity and immediacy. To recollect experiences in this way is to relive them, and to draw from this recollection an extraordinary impetus that is capable of stirring energy dispersed from our centers of vitality and returning it to them. Sorcerers refer to this redeployment of energy that the recapitulation causes as gaining fluidity after giving the dark sea of awareness what it is looking for. On a more mundane level, the recapitulation gives practitioners the capacity to examine the repetition in their lives. Recapitulating can convince them beyond the shadow of a doubt that all of us are at the mercy of forces which ultimately make no sense, although at first sight they seem perfectly reasonable, such as being at the mercy of courtship. It seems that for some people, courtship is the pursuit of a lifetime. I have personally heard from people of advanced age that the only ideal that they had was to find a perfect companion, and that their aspiration was to have perhaps 1 year of happiness in love. Don Juan Matus used to say to me, over my vehement protests, that the problem was that nobody really wanted to love anybody, but that every one of us wanted to be loved. He said that this obsession with courtship, taken at face value, was the most natural thing in the world to us. To hear a 75-year-old man or woman say that they are still in search of a perfect companion is an affirmation of something idealistic, romantic, beautiful. However, to examine this obsession in the context of the endless repetitions of a lifetime makes it appear as it really is, something grotesque. Don Juan assured me that if any behavioral change is going to be accomplished, it has to be done through the recapitulation, since it is the only vehicle that can enhance awareness by liberating one from the unvoiced demands of socialization, which are so automatic, so taken for granted, that they are not even noticed under normal conditions, much less examined. The actual act of recapitulating is a lifetime endeavor. It takes years to exhaust the list of people, especially for those who have made the acquaintance of and have interacted with thousands of individuals. This list is augmented by the memory of impersonal events in which no people are involved, but which have to be examined because they are somehow related to the person being recapitulated. Don Juan asserted that what the sorcerers of ancient Mexico sought avidly in recapitulating was the memory of interaction, because in interaction lie the deep effects of socialization, which they struggle to overcome by any means available.